In order to show you the use of the doc type, I'm going to create a simple HTML document here, about as simple as I can get. And I could put a head, a body. So this is just simple. We'll call this our hello world. And this is about as basic as we can get. And you'll notice I have the HTML, the head and the body. If I now go open that, you'll notice that Chrome, the Google browser, is perfectly happy to display that hello world. It understands that. If I open that up with another browser, say Firefox, it's also perfectly happy to render that. Now the issue here is that those browsers are having to guess at what standard I'm following, which version of HTML or XHTML I'm using here, and they're having to render based on that guess. I don't know about you, but I don't like my tools in software or my computer tools to guess. I want them to know what they're doing. And so one of the things that we can do with the doc type is we can tell the browser, the client, this is the standard that I'm following. So if we switch here over to Chrome, we look at the w3.org for the valid DTD list, you'll see that we've got templates here, and we can also go through and see that there are a variety of different standards that we could be following. Now the most common are going to be the HTML 4.01 or XHTML. Those are the most common ones today. You can see there's a variety of others. HTML5 is out there. It's not yet a standard, but they do have a doc type that you use for that. And then there's some other things like MathML and other SVG related declarations. But if we take this same HTML now, we'll just copy that. We'll paste it in here. And we can see we've got a number of different items in here. We've got the title that's in there as standard. So we could say hello HTML is our title. And then we've got the body, and we'll change that to our hello world. We can save that. Again, of course, the browser is perfectly happy. It doesn't look any different than what we had before. But if we go out to the markup validation service, so validator.w3.org, what we can do is validate by direct input. And we'll take our content here, paste that in, and check it. You see it was successfully checked as XHTML10.strict. It is going to tell me that it's assuming the encoding here based on what we've put in the tags. So what happens if, for example, we come in and take out the P and we revalidate? Well, you can see now, because it understands that we're trying to follow this standard, this XHTML1 strict, it's going to give us an error and tell us that we can't put just plain text inside the body. We need to wrap that with some sort of element, a div tag or a p tag or paragraph tag. And so that document type declaration is your contract with the client that says, I'm following this particular standard. These are the items that you can expect from me. Now again, there are many different standards out there we can follow or that we can use in terms of document type declarations. Even for HTML4, you can see we have a strict, a transitional, and a frame set. Likewise for XHTML. The strict means we're going to follow only those items that are actually in the standard and have not been deprecated. So there are several items that have been deprecated in there that you'll want to avoid if you're following the strict. Whereas the transitional or loose means that you're following it, but you also might be using some of those items that have been deprecated. And frame set is when you're not just going to include a body. Inside your HTML, you're going to have a frame set or a series of frames, each one pointing to a separate HTML document or containing its own content. XHTML is a revision of the HTML standard which follows the guidelines of XML. So for example, one of the things you could do in HTML is you could leave the P off and the closing tag and simply have the hello world. If we switch over to the validator and we try that, we can put just the start tag in. We'll revalidate and see that we still get a warning, we still get an error that the end tag is omitted. So when we're using the XHTML, This also has to be valid XML, which means that we have to have open and closing tags for all those items. So now I can revalidate that. So it's important to put that doc type at the top of your file. It lets the client know which standard you're following. It's also important to follow that standard to make sure that your HTML that you're sending down is going to be rendered properly. And that's what it all comes down to with this doc type. The browsers will do their best. As we saw, it'll try to render things even if it doesn't have the doc type. But it's better to be sure to tell the browser this is a standard I'm following and then follow that standard. Whatever HTML editing tool you choose, as long as it's not something like Notepad here, you will most likely get that kind of guidance from a tool. A Visual Studio or another HTML editing tool is going to show you where you have errors, where you're not following the document type that you've declared at the top.